You are listening to A Better Place, a Girl Scout Gold Award project explained. I'm Serene Haroon. Today, I will be giving you a crash course on emergency preparedness as a starting point to your own research into the topic, and providing some tips on how to teach this information to your participants. As I said in the first episode, I am not an expert in the field, but I did do extensive research into the topic for my project. First off, according to FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, there are 4 steps to achieving emergency preparedness. The first is mitigation. Mitigation involves actions taken to prevent or reduce the likeliness of an emergency occurring or reducing the damage it would cause. If you wanted to mitigate the damage a fire would cause in your home, you would probably regularly test smoke detectors, buy fire insurance, or follow fire safety guidelines when working or building within the house. The second step is preparedness. This step includes any steps taken to prepare for an emergency. Examples of preparedness include receiving an education in first aid and CPR, developing plans of what to do in an emergency and practicing it, or preparing a go-bag. The next step is response. This step occurs during an actual emergency. It involves safely responding to an emergency situation and is entirely dependent on how well the mitigation and preparedness steps were completed. Continuing on with the house fire example I made earlier, a poor response would involve a situation where the homeowner had not regularly tested their smoke detectors and was not aware that they were defective. So when the fire occurred in, say, their attic, they were unaware of it until it had caused major damage to the house or the homeowner himself. On the flip side, if the smoke detectors had been regularly tested, the homeowner would have been alerted of the fire and could follow the plans they had made in advance to safely exit the house and call 911, constituting a good response. The fourth and final step is recovery. This step occurs after the emergency has passed and involves any steps taken to recover from the emergency, like repairing any damages to the house. Recovery also involves reflecting on the level of preparedness achieved for the emergency and making changes to be better prepared for similar emergencies in the future. In this way, the steps to achieving emergency preparedness are a cycle that repeats itself over and over as emergency situations come and go. When teaching this cycle to your participants, you want to figure out ways to make learning fun. Obviously, using an escape room to educate is a step toward that. However, you want to make sure that the method of getting the information across is also interesting. Imagine that you are a participant in your own escape room. Now suppose that the minigame created to present this information goes like this. The screen is black, but after a moment, a green text box appears. It asks you to identify which step of the emergency preparedness cycle each sentence is and gives you a simple definition of each of the steps. You click Next. Another text box appears, and this time it provides a scenario. Say a homeowner creates a map to exit the house from each room, and 4 boxes appear below it, each with a different step in the emergency preparedness cycle. You click on Preparedness and the screen goes black once more. This time, a similar thing appears, but with a different scenario. Imagine that this continues for 15 more questions. Now, while this minigame will get your point across and educate your participants in the process, it is ultimately boring and does not fully utilize the visual elements that Microsoft PowerPoint offers. Instead, imagine this. A floor plan of a 4-story mansion appears on the screen. The mansion is equipped with its own elevator, 3 sets of staircases, and over 20 rooms. Each room and hallway is complete with measurements in feet. A text box appears asking the participant to find the fastest route from the master bedroom on the 4th floor to the front door in the event of an emergency. In order to complete this task, the participant would have to know that you should always use the stairs in an emergency and use math to add up the distances of the hallways to find the fastest route. When the participant is set on a route, they click each of the hallways along their route and a red line showing the path they outlined appears. This minigame does not explicitly teach the emergency preparedness cycle or state that this would fall under the umbrella of the preparedness step. However, it uses a hands-on method of learning and teaches the participant that making escape route plans for emergencies falls under being prepared. If the creator desired, they could include some of this background information in the introduction of the minigame. Besides the 4 steps of emergency preparedness, you want to list out the themes of your other minigames when planning your escape room as well. Emergency preparedness is a vast subject with many types of knowledge that you could teach your participants. To name a few: first aid, CPR, weather watches, weather warnings, go bags, safe rooms, and fire safety. As with the example I gave earlier with the emergency preparedness cycle, you want to make learning this information as fun as possible. The reality is that I cannot get every point of emergency preparedness across perfectly or even good enough. That is why I planned for the Q&A session afterwards, to clear up any confusion that my escape room brought. Ultimately, you always want to do your own research. What is the difference between a weather watch and a weather warning? What are some basic rules of first aid? What are the qualities of a safe room, and what should it be prepared with? As you research, you want to narrow down what exactly you want the participants to learn from the escape room, and then figure out a way to creatively teach it. This is not always an easy task, and you will ultimately fail on a couple of minigames, but you can still use them and sandwich them in between 2 better minigames. As always, at the end of each episode, I want to thank a special someone that made this project possible. For this episode, I would like to thank the 3 panelists for the Q&A session: Cindy Wurz, Community Education and Outreach Specialist of the Mitigation Division from Region 6 of FEMA, Amanda Fox, the City of Garland Planning and Preparedness Coordinator, and Jerry Click, City of Garland Firefighter and Paramedic. In this episode, I mentioned a variety of materials I created for my project. You can see each of these materials for yourself at sereneharoon.com/abetterplace. That's SERENEHAROON.com/abetterplace, all one word. There, you can also find the rest of the episodes in this series, along with transcripts and extra resources and videos to assist you. If you have any additional questions, there is also a contact form you can fill out to reach me. Next time on A Better Place, I will be walking you through the escape room that I made for my event. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.